Now I'll watch my language. My brother said, he's like, pull up the song by hand.
Okay, gonna call the meeting to order. We've got a quorum. So let's do a roll call. And who are we missing? Sarah?
Lindsay, Christina, and Sarah have told me they're not coming.
Okay, so we know they're not coming, okay. So we'll move on to approval of the agenda. We have a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We need a
You
first.
need it first.
Oh. I move to approve the agenda.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, any discussion, changes, anything? All in favor of the current agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Move on to announcements. That's over to you, Tracy.
Okay, I have a few, so bear with me because we have not met since December.
Yeah.
So I have a few and I'll try to just be quick about it. One is just to acknowledge that we have 5 seats that are expiring in June. We have Steve Greco, Patrick Huber, Ramiro, and Lindsay, and Christopher, correct? And I know you've all gotten emails about that, so, just make sure if you haven't done so already, just respond to those emails so that the clerk can figure out how many vacant positions they need to solicit for, and we'll have to, I think, do something special for Patrick in June because he's termed out. And how long have you been on the commission?
God only knows. I'm not sure. 15
So we'll have to do
years.
a little special something for Patrick because he's been on the commission a long time and his last meeting will be June, as far as I know. So, and also the city clerk asked me to remind everybody, if you do move or you have an address change or something, please let the clerk know. Because, in particular for the, the conflict of interest zones, the circles that we have, about the 500 feet and the 1,000 feet, they have to redo those every time you move, and so it's important that we have up-to-date addresses for everybody, okay? And then the general plan update, I just wanted to mention, I know you guys have gotten a couple of emails from me about it, but I just want to reiterate again, we're having that. We've had, the city has had the kickoff meeting with the consultant, but April 23rd at 6:30 will be the kickoff meeting for the commissions. And so that's the meeting that we talked about before about that will kind of, give you an overview of what's going to be asked of the commissions and time to ask questions, and there are a couple subcommittees this commission will be asked to set up, and so you get more information about that. So it's really important that you come to that meeting if you can. So, because I think that's April 23rd at the May meeting, I might be asking you to set up the subcommittee. We'll see if it's at the May meeting or the June meeting, but there's a subcommittee that's gonna look at peripheral parcels that are high priority for open space and habitat conservation or easements. There's just a little subcommittee that's gonna be working with some of the other subcommittees from some of the other commissions. So then if you have any questions about that, you can email me anytime, and I'll get you the answers. Couple SALC things, because we didn't meet in January. The SALC stands for the Sustainable Ag Land Conservation Program, which we apply to frequently for easement acquisition grants. I applied for the Beauchamps easement, which we talked about. It was submitted in time. I haven't heard anything yet back from them. I had one inquiry about it. They had a question, I responded, but I haven't heard anything else, so I'm gonna check in with them shortly. If we make it to the next round, the full application is due, I think, July 3rd or something like that, so there's still time, but not a lot of time.
What were I'm sorry, but what were the last 2 words in that acronym, SALT?
So the Sustainable Agricultural Land Conservation
Yeah,
Program.
SALC.
Oops,
SALC.
thank you.
And then Deer Capital, we had talked also about possibly Deer, that other property that Deer Capital owned. He didn't want to go forward with that, so I only did Beauchamp's,
Okay.
okay? And then after,
Yeah.
after, I found out that, that the Solano Land Trust had applied, they did this to me last time, where they kind of just apply and put our name down as possible grant fund match, but they don't ask me about it ahead of time. Anyway, they
Okay.
applied on, and some of you will be familiar with this parcel, the Nishikawa parcel
Okay.
on Hood Creek.
Mm.
So they, that's 711 acres, so anyway, they applied through the same salt ground for that one, because that's of course Solano County, that part of Hood Creek is Solano County, so.
And just to add to that, there's a major restoration project happening on that parcel as we
Yes.
speak, or at least the permitting is going on.
Is it actually going forward?
I think it's going through all the permitting process, but yeah.
Yeah, the Solano County Water Agency is doing, and I actually sent the Solano Land Trust information about that anyway. So I guess that's a long way of saying we have two that are in the hopper for SALC this year. So we'll see what happens there. Like I said, the full applications are due on July 3rd. Oh, I said, yeah, it's July 3rd,
July, not June?
July. Okay.
So, when you apply to SALT, you have to apply as a county, or it doesn't matter, or what's the?
No, I mean, you can apply as a county.
But it just happened at Solano.
Yeah, that land trust does things different than the YOLO. Usually when we partner with YOLO, just because YOLO's smaller, usually I do the application and we partner together. But Solano, they're a much bigger operation, so they kind of just do it. So, and then, the whole Pashol negotiations is still going on. We submitted a revised proposal.
Okay.
It's still percolating, still waiting. I don't know, the broker thinks possibly something a little bit later this spring. Then we've had 2 walnut harvests, and so the price is more. He's getting a clear idea.
We're gonna get there.
Prices.
We're gonna
We're gonna get there. So, I haven't given up. We sent a much sweetened offer, still
Okay.
not accepted, but, it's still has not been sold either. So, still fingers crossed on that one. And then, the only other thing I was just gonna mention is, we were gonna have the Village Farms, Davis update tonight, or I mean, not update, but the, open space and habitat features tonight. And, anyway, there'll be more information forthcoming, but suffice it to say for now, it just wasn't ready to talk about tonight, so we, had to not talk about it tonight, so that's about all I can say at the moment. But there'll be more information about that later, and those are my announcements.
Great. Mayor Chapman, you're here, thank you. Do you have anything to
No,
announce?
you did, Tracy did a great job.
Okay. Good. Okay, so, any, commissioners, any announcements? Scott? No.
I didn't catch your name.
I'm Josh Chapman.
Oh, Josh.
He's our city council liaison.
Yes.
So we will move over to public comment. I'm not sure if everyone here has public comment on things on the agenda or not on the agenda this is time.
It's not on the agenda.
Everyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you're standing up, so why not?
Sure. 2 different things.
Good evening, my name is Eileen Sametz. I was a former Davis Planning Commissioner at one time. I served on the General Plan Update, 2001 Update Committee, and also on the Housing Element Steering Committee after that. I also was a representative during the whole golf course negotiations years ago in '95. And the reason for that was because there were a lot of concern around, well, the neighboring neighborhoods had concerns. So we were asked if you want input, you know, bring your concerns together. We did. We worked as a coalition. I was one of the reps for Green Meadows, and there was two of the neighborhoods, Lindia and Cobell Farms. So anyway, basically one of my first questions to Jeff Lux at the time was, you know, what would prevent housing from happening on this golf course? And he said, well, actually nothing, except a conservation easement. They said, you know, the developer's not likely to give you that. And I said, well, you know, that's a starting point. We want the conservation easement. And fortunately, the developers were really cooperative. And the reason for that was because what was brewing at the time was a referendum. Well, it came later, but the point is they were nervous about the project moving forward. So ultimately what happened is we got the conservation easement. I made it very clear, and so we did throughout the process. This needed to be as bulletproof as possible. And there's a copy for everybody here, right?
Mm.
Because I'll be referring to them. Anyway, so what wound up happening is we got the conservation easement. We said make it as bulletproof as possible. And Jeff kept reassuring us that's what would happen, because, you know, the cities would be the entity that would have the conservation easement, and so it would protect it. So basically what happened is that referendum happened, it was passed. Well, the conservation easement was in the development agreement, was what the vote was on. The development agreement was being challenged. And so the development agreement did pass with the conservation easement, 60-40. So there was a vote of the public on this as well. So there's a lot of history on why this should, you know, and should continue to be protected. So anyway, basically your conservation easement, as you guys know, is into perpetuity. And so that's what we keep on reminding the owner of the golf course has subsequently, he bought the property. I gave you an article on this in 2017, and it was all this whole about, oh, they're gonna save this, family's gonna save the golf course. And keep in mind, this is an Audubon principle designed golf course, so it's very habitat friendly. So the bottom line is they wound up buying the golf course and saying it's, you know, it's a great, you know, thing that's going to move forward, we're going to protect it. Within a year, he applied for Bursera, I think, Volterra, sorry, 60 condos to be put on one part of the conservation easement. And, you know, the argument I made was like, even a little piece of the conservation easement is into perpetuity. You don't get to kind of bite away at it little by little. So the city informed him and reminded him about the conservation easement. He backed off. But then ultimately what wound up happening is in last year, he came back with a bigger proposal. And this time on 75 acres, like 700 units, the whole northern part's in the picture on the article. So anyway, so there were some neighborhood meetings that only happened because they were told they had to have the neighborhood meetings. The neighborhood meetings were very good. There were a lot of people that showed up outside of the neighborhood, including me and environmentalists, because they're very concerned about this. And they got plenty of feedback that this was not acceptable. So the bottom line is we really need the Open Space Commission to have a meeting regarding this, to agendize it, to discuss it, because we're hearing that he's going to come back with another proposal, because he withdrew it for the moment, but now we're hearing it's going to come back again. And regardless of what version this is, a conservation easement is into perpetuity. Into perpetuity means into perpetuity. And, you know, we trusted the city then. We assume that we could trust the city now to defend that conservation easement and to reject the applications and to stop all this angst and, you know, concern that they keep.
Eileen, I'm gonna have to ask you to wrap up. We're over time.
I am actually.
Okay. Well,
Yeah, that's kind of the bottom line is like we are asking for a meeting, please, and thank you for the opportunity to speak.
great, thank
Any
you.
questions, please let me know. It's in my contact information is in the article.
Great, thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Marjorie Longo. I'm going to read to you an attorney letter that was sent to the city July 22nd, 2024, to City of Dayton City Council, Michael Webb, Thomas McNair, and Indra Casa regarding the North Cobell Creek project. This is from attorneys Ellen A. Fred, attorney of Conservation Partners Law Firm, Robert B. Martin III, attorney litigator of SSL Law Firm. We represent a group of Wild Horse neighbors and other Davis citizens opposed to the North Covell Creek project proposal. Although we understand the project application was recently withdrawn, our position is that City of Davis, as grantee and holder of the 1998 conservation easement on the 164-acre Wild Horse Golf Club, is required to uphold the conservation easement in perpetuity and cannot modify it to permit residential, commercial, industrial development rights. While we understand that cities must work to balance evolving and sometimes conflicting public priorities, a city cannot simply extinguish its commitment under a conservation easement to meet other needs inconsistent with the terms of the easement. Otherwise, the conservation easement is illusory, and the city cannot then be trusted to conserve properties protected in perpetuity by conservation easements or even to uphold any other contract to which it is party. The grantee of a conservation easement, here the city, has the authority and responsibility to enforce the restrictions of the conservation easement. When a perpetual easement is accepted by a government, it accepts the responsibility of enforcement and the duty to prevent termination. Conservation easements are perpetual in a way distinct from typical easements, covenants, or restrictions. The protection afforded the conservation values on a property subjected to a conservation easement cannot be warped for the convenience of the underlying property owner to suit emerging interests of the easement holder. The Davis City Council and the electorate, through 1995's Measure R, in approving the development agreement for the Wild Horse project, chose to protect the open space character of the Wild Horse Club property through a conservation easement, whether held by the city or a qualified nonprofit land trust. I also want to mention that this should be backstopped by a Measure J that's based on the vote, the fact that this was voted in, and the fact that it was part of the open space element. Even if we assume instead that the city had not expected to be the easement holder, the end result is the same. The city accepted a meaningful perpetual obligation and now needs to protect it. The deed of conservation easement itself reiterates in its introductory paragraph that the conservation easement was granted for the purpose of forever conserving the open space character of the subject property. And although section 13.3 of the conservation easement states that the city may approve an amendment to change the nature or use of the easement, conservation easements cannot be amended when the amendment cuts against the protections intended by the conservation easement. Further, the deed of conservation easement prohibits uses of the land that are inconsistent with these conservation purposes, and residential is specifically defined as an inconsistent use to be prevented. Public entities holding conservation easements are in a uniquely challenging position, but using governmental authority to undo a prior commitment to uphold an expressly perpetual agreement is not only in direct opposition to the statutory authority underlying the agreement, but is ultimately disingenuous to the city's constituents. Very truly yours, Alan A. Fred, Attorney, Conservation Partners Law Firm, Robert B. Martini, Attorney, Litigator, SSL Law Firm. This letter should prompt the Commission to add Wild Horse to a duly noted agenda that we can all attend in an upcoming meeting before the next proposal comes in to build on the golf course. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you guys have the order choreographed, so I don't have to decide here.
And we write our names down. My name is Sharon Monteith. I went to school at UC Davis in 78 to 82, and then moved back to the Bay Area and back here in 2001. So I have a long history with Davis, the city of Davis. I love the city of Davis, and it's my home. And I live in the Wild Horse neighborhood. I don't back up to the golf course, but my concerns are the recreational and the wildlife in the area. I walk around that golf course. I've walked around it thousands of times. I also am a volunteer at California Raptor Center in Davis and NorCal Bats. I have a great interest in wild animals and their habitat. We recently got in a long-eared owl from the Wild Horse Golf Course, which unfortunately did not survive because it flew into the barbed wire fencing, but that's my concern. I enjoy the wildlife out there. It's a great resource. There's, lots of stuff going on out there, and it's just, lovely for the neighborhood. My second main concern is that, as Margie and Eileen have stated, the easement was designed to be in perpetuity. It's written in there, and my concerns are if that is not recognized. It was also voted on. I just don't see how the city can go back on something like that. I would have major concerns about that. Finally, if I have a minute, I would like to make sure that there's an agenda item before, that it's an agenda item before and after the next developmental proposal is submitted, so we can all talk about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright, my name is Karen Shaw, and except for 5 years, I've been a resident of Davis since 1972. So,
Maybe.
I returned to golf in 2009 when we became empty nesters. The majority of my golf rounds are now played at Wild Horse Golf Course. I'm here to advocate for the support of the conservation easement that encompasses 165 acres of the Wild Horse Golf Course. This property was the subject of an application for development called North Coville Creek, which was withdrawn last summer. The application was actually a second development plan, and we anticipate that the golf course will soon become the subject of a third application. The City of Davis holds the 1998 deed of conservation easement for the Wild Horse Golf Club course. I request that the Wild Horse Golf Course conservation easement be added to as an agenda item for an upcoming meeting in the Open Space Committee. The 1994 Wild Horse Development Plan was supported by a citywide vote in 1995, which included approval of the conservation easement for a golf course. Wild Horse Golf Course is the only public 18-hole championship course in Davis. Please note that there are multiple buyers interested in purchasing a golf course for a golf course, but the owner passed on these opportunities. The 2024 withdrawn application for development included a proposal to exchange for land or funds to the city to remove 75 acres from the conservation easement. I believe that this cannot be done under the circumstances in which the easement was set up. I'll explain. An easement exchange is a tool of the 1965 California Land Conservation Act, otherwise known as the Williamson Act, but it was amended in 1998 to allow easement exchanges. However, in the conservation deed, Civil Code Section 815 is referenced prominently. There are important differences between the 815 and the Williamson Act, and I'd like to remind, I hope I'm speaking, to people who already know what I'm talking about, or know more than me. Anyway, Williamson Act provides the landowner to enter into contracts with local government to restrict land use to agriculture or compatible open space uses for a rolling 10-year term, and provides property tax reductions based on the land's actual use rather than its market value. Civil Code Section 815 encourages the voluntary conveyance of conservation easements to preserve the land in its natural, scenic, agriculture, historical, forested, or open space condition. These conservation easements are legally binding agreements that restrict land use and are perpetual in duration and allows landowners to voluntarily protect their land while retaining ownership. It is broader than the Williamson Act, covering various lands of land preservation beyond agriculture, which is a golf course in our case. In summary, the Williamson Act, I'm almost done. Williamson Act is primarily focused on ag land preservation through tax incentives, while Civil Code 815 provides a broader framework for land conservation through perpetual easements that stay with the land, not the landowners. And I also want to reiterate the risk to the city of Davis if they destroy this conservation easement. It could destroy all your good work here and put the public trust, you'd lose the public trust for doing something like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Russ. Bad news is I'm gonna be redundant. Maybe the good news is I'm gonna be redundant.
Could you repeat your name?
Russ, Downstate. So I'd like to see the wildlife conservation easement issue added as an agenda item for and after the next ballot proposal is submitted. And we know that city leaders made an assertion that the conservation easement is to be open space, even if the golf course fails. Civil Code 815 protects the easement in perpetuity. The city has the ability and responsibility to stand up for it. Any proposal to extinguish or amend any part of the conservation easement for development should be rejected. If the city goes back on their promise, it would be a serious violation of trust and harmful to the city's legacy. Citizens like Eileen here, negotiated the easement back in the early 1990s, and it was approved by voters in 1995. There's a strong opposition from Davis citizens, environmental attorneys, and a recreational policy organization. The city does not need a lawsuit, and I'm sure there will be one or more. Davis played an important role in the formation of the world's celebration of Earth Day, and that's a proud legacy. Why would we want to damage our reputation? Overturning the easement is directly contrary, I believe, to the climate action and adaptation plan adopted by the city 2 years ago. But overturning it would be a really bad precedent. The legal precedent is courts and local governments around California will point to the broken easement as justification to weaken other easements. And for developers, once they see that easements like this can be undone, they'll be aggressively pursuing other protected lands. And as far as overturning the easement would weaken land use planning tools. Planners would struggle to justify protections on other parcels, and relentless developers will keep seeking loopholes.
Thank you.
Thanks. And caboose. Hi, my name is Gail Berry. And I really want to thank you for hearing our comments this evening and giving us a chance to tell you about how deeply this impacts us, our neighbors, and the Davis community. I live in the Wild Horse neighborhood with my family, and I've also spent my life advocating and working in conservation, wildlife habitat, and the easement arena. So today I want to make 3 comments. First, permanent conservation easements are a matter of legal and public trust. You guys know that. You're doing easements all the time. And it's really your credibility, too, as a commission. So while the lawyers might fight and argue over the wording and the clauses and different things like that, the intent and promise is clear on this particular parcel. It was protected as conservation easement for all time, and that is without a doubt its best and highest use. Should the golf course fail? It is as true today, and maybe even more so than when the agreement was forged, due to the pressures that you're seeing and why I think you're entering into so many easements in this area. Second, not all conservation easements are created equal. This is a unique parcel. The linkages with the ag wildlife buffer, the existing wildlife and wildlife corridors from the surrounding properties, and the water that runs through it is unparalleled. It is already occupied by multiple species that still roam wild and free, not relying on backyard feeders to exist. Game is moving into the area in ever-increasing numbers, not only the turkeys that Davis loves and tolerates, but recently quail, amphibians, and many, many other kinds of species, as Sharon shared about the owl. When was the last time you saw a covey of quail in nearby Davis? This kind of habitat and ecosystem can't just be picked up and moved or recreated without decades or perhaps longer to a nearby farm field. So I implore you to keep our open space in this conservation easement. In this goal, I think the members of the community and this commission are in alignment. In addition, this apparent struggle, and by that I mean the fact that we're having to advocate so vocally to keep what's so clearly an intent of the easement, is starting to gain national and regional attention with conservation and golfing groups, wondering why Davis leaders can't just stand behind this legal easement and commitment. So I'm asking you again, we'd love to be on the agenda, and I thank you for your time and attention to this matter, and we just ask you to join with us in keeping this easement. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Thanks everyone for coming in and bringing this to our attention. Okay, now moving on to the consent calendar, which is the minutes from our last meeting. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mark. We have a second.
Second.
Thanks. Any discussion? Any editing there? Okay. All in favor of the consent calendar as it stands, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Let's move on to the regular items now then. First, let's talk about Los Rios. And that's over
Okay,
to you, Tracy.
yes, let's talk about Los Rios. So, trouble doing this from a distance. Hang on, let me just catch up for 1 second.
Anybody want?
Oh, before we go into that, if you want these materials to get out to the commission, just go ahead and send
Is it the same as the staff report? Or is it one?
What?
It is the
your
stuff-
materials that you
Yeah.
were passing out. It's in the staff report? Is that what you said?
The what?
No,
No.
I thought you were talking about the Los Rios thing.
Oh, no, I meant to, I was just going back to your public comments, the materials that you produced. If you send them to Tracy, she can email them to us.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
I thought you were talking about the next one.
Oh,
No, yeah, I went this way and then I went that way, so keeping everyone on their toes here.
so the Los Rios property, just to remind everybody what I'm talking about here. So of course, here's Mace Boulevard and County Road 104, and then South Fork Preserve, which we know of, is right here.
Mhm.
And then a little bit, this is private property. This is the Pichol property we were talking about before.
Mhm.
And then here is Los Rios. So, and Los, so, yeah, I know. What I wanted to talk about tonight is that, so these three properties the city owns, and, you can see that, most of the property is farmed, but there's, one of the reasons, the main reason why the city bought these properties, because of course it's not that we're farmers. We bought these properties to preserve the riparian corridor, and so I guess these three came together, but anyway, you can see that the riparian corridor, though, it touches these two parcels. It's relatively narrow in this spot.
Mhm.
Well, it's narrow in most places along the creek now, because a lot of the land that's in between the levees is still farmed. Anyway, the city has owned these three parcels since the late 90s. The city bought, this was long before Measure O was passed, the city bought these three parcels along with another 5 parcels that make up this South Fork Preserve. It actually goes, this parcel too is farmed. I don't have it. It's not part of the nature preserve, so that's why it's not outlined, but
Mhm.
there were 8 parcels altogether that the city bought in the late 90s with state grant funds, the Proposition 70 funds. And so that's how we got these parcels along the creek. And anyway, because of that, so the city's just had these, we farm them, this one, of course, was restored into oak savanna and riparian habitat, but the other parcels are farmed mostly, and then the riparian, kind of, we don't really do too much with this riparian down here because it's not really that accessible, but the farmer can't do anything to it. It has to be preserved. And so the Yellow Habitat Conservancy about, I don't know, a couple years ago, came to me and said, this whole creek, it's a priority acquisition area for the Conservancy in terms of acquisition, meaning habitat easements that they could then add to the reserve of habitat lands that are part of the YOLO Habitat Conservation Plan, Natural Communities Conservation Plan, HCP, NCCP, And the whole point of that is to, you know, have lands that are connected together, not a, you know, patchwork of properties everywhere, but to have them all, have a reserve that's more connected. So they have been very interested in this parcel for a long time to put a habitat easement on it. And we looked into it a couple of years ago with them, and I basically was told by the state that there was language in the Prop 70 grant that in the measure that was passed by the state legislature that prevented basically preventing the sale of an easement, any sale at all, including an easement. Even though we were arguing, but it's a habitat easement, and anyway, they basically said, no, you have to have an act of the state legislature. So that was a couple of years ago, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna do that. So I kind of gave up. Then, you know, recently, different people approached us to consider, they're looking at, I don't even know if it's still happening, but they were looking at a carbon sink in this whole huge area here. To pump carbon way below ground. And they were thinking, you know, to do that, they would need, again, some easement underground to do that. And of course, you know, I couldn't do that either. So the bottom line was, you know, last year, I think it was last year, the year before, because of that, we were able to get an actual bill through the state legislature. And basically got that Prop 70 language just changed slightly so that we could, it was very specific, it just says that we are now allowed as a city, if we want, to sell habitat easements on any of those eight parcels that we purchased with Prop 70 funds. So once that happened, I talked to the city council about next steps here, and, you know, basically got authority to apply to the Yale Habitat Conservancy for a habitat easement on those three. I filled out the application. As it said in the staff report, I don't remember when, but we met out there with them, their science and technical advisory committee. We walked through the whole property. And, you know, they're very interested in it, and, you know, ideally, at some point, it would be nice, well, you can see too, they're really interested, on this map is kind of hard, it's hard, but it's hard to see here, but this is in, the darker green areas are sort of their priority acquisition areas for their nature reserve.
Tracy, on one little thing on this map is, if you go back to that, I think that the red one there is actually South Fork Preserve. If you look, it's right adjacent to Mace.
Yeah.
Is it?
I think it's the next. I think it's the next green one over, maybe.
Huh. All right. Well.
Anyway, it's a small thing. The point stands. Well, I mean, that's, you can see where Mace is.
That's funny. All right. Well, I guess then maybe it's right here.
But then it also looks like there's that big orange of an existing easement on something.
Well, so the orange is, I didn't bring my open space easements map, but the orange, it's part of that whole deal when the city got these three parcels. There's an actual, Los Rios also owned this big property, these properties up here. So we have a conservation easement on those.
Got it.
But, so just an easement though, that's the orange, is the easement area. So it must have, you're right, I don't know what.
Should be about that number, well, number 9 is then.
Yeah, I guess it's sort of right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one thing that they, you know, because the HCP, NCCP, a lot of the targeted species under that plan, you know, definitely, you know, live and/or could live, have a lot of potential for this whole corridor that we have here on the South Fork. So, you know, one thing that they that we might do, and they might do, which would be nice if we did do this habitat easement, would be that we could actually potentially, and if we actually could get this parcel,
Yeah.
you know, expand, you know, we would kind of reduce this farmland a bit and, you know, even potentially out here and expand that habitat corridor, you know, expand the riparian, similar to kind of what we've done at South Fork Reserve. They're really interested in doing that, and of course then they have mitigation funds that they could use to do that. You know, it's kind of hard for the city to do that.
I'm sorry, Tracy, who is proposing to do that?
The Yolo Habitat Conservancy.
Wonderful.
So the habitat easement would be with the Yolo Habitat Conservancy. And so even though these parcels, as I said, already kind of have a deed restriction on them, I mean, they have a deed restriction in the sense that the state has said, you know, you bought these parcels to preserve the riparian, and, you know, you can't really use it for anything else. The farming is okay, but you can't really use it for anything else. So it's sort of restricted in that regard, but what the habitat easement would do is further restricted in the sense that it would just formally prohibit orchards and vineyards, which we wouldn't really do anyway, but it would formally prohibit that. And I'm proposing that we donate it and not make the Conservancy pay because, also because, well, for a number of reasons, but the one is that we did, when the ACP and CCP was passed, you know, a lot of the member agencies and the Conservancy agreed to kind of help. There was a whole financing plan, and a lot of the participating agencies agreed to say, hey, you know, we will contribute a certain amount towards the implementation of this reserve over the 50 years plan. And that's not necessarily cash. It's not like cash, but this would count. For example, if we donated this easement to the Yolo Habitat Conservancy, you know, we'd get it appraised and there'd be some value associated with it, and then that would go towards our what the city council committed, which was $200,000.
So it looks like it's
years.
6 years of commitments.
So we would catch up
Something
a
like
little
that,
bit,
yeah.
yeah, because so far we haven't done anything. So this would kind of get us caught up a little bit in terms of what we had committed that we would do based on just rough estimates of what the habitat value would be. And also because, you know, they would be also probably, you know, helping us quite a bit with doing the actual restoration and using some of their mitigation funds to help with the restoration. And, you know, like I said, I would, and, you know, I talked to them too about public access. Right now we don't really have, I don't really like people, of course people kayak down here. If you're on the water, it's not a big deal, but it's difficult right now because of the farming. And so, but if the riparian was widened and I don't know, we'd have to figure out some way to sort of separate, because you can see the levee doesn't really work as a good separator in this case because the levee stops.
Levee goes south, right?
The levee
right
just sort of
there.
stops.
Yeah.
It just sort of
Goes
stops,
south,
so it's not it's not a good barrier like the other parcels have. In terms of a barrier between the public and the active farming. You know, ideally, I mean, who knows what we'll say, but I mean, if my preference would be that, you know, we don't have public we figure out a way to do this, but it would be more in earnest if we could somehow connect these two. And because I don't really want cars coming way over here and then going in this back way. I don't know, we'll have to figure it out. But public access would definitely be, that's part of the goal here, is to, again, expand on our gem down here, South Fork Preserve, and try to, you know, replicate that, you know, further eastward along the creek.
So Tracy, what you mean is that potential public access would be included in the easement? Is that
Yes.
what you're talking about?
Yes, and, you know, I made that kind of, and the Conservancy's okay with that, and, you know, I made that clear, like, hey, we're gonna do this. You know, we have to allow for public access through here, you know, just as long as it, you know, similar to South Fork Preserve, where you have public access as long as it's not at the detriment to the habitat, you know? And they're okay with that. So that would definitely be a requirement, and they know that.
So Tracy, just for clarification, the property adjacent to the north is privately owned, but the city holds an easement on, is that what you're saying?
So not this one, so not
Oh,
this
not
one.
that one.
So this unfortunately has nothing on it, this little finger.
Oh, okay.
So this little finger right here has nothing on it.
Who owns it?
Los Rios, John Anderson. And we have an easement on everything to the north of that.
North of the levee.
This area,
That's interesting.
up here in this area. If you look on that interactive, that open space interactive map, you can see, and this one, actually, this one is, I can't remember, it might just be the Yellow Land Trust, but it was part of this whole deal when we got those 3 parcels. So we may actually not be a holder of this easement, but the Yellow Land Trust is, but it's definitely got an easement on it, this whole. And this is all Los Rios, John Anderson owned property as well. I do not know why this little finger was excluded. I wish it wasn't, but it is.
It's in the levees inside, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it's the little narrow band that's inside the levee, yeah.
Right.
So I have not, well, other than I talked to the city council once about it, to just say, hey, can I apply for this habitat easement? They said, okay, but what I'm looking for from you guys tonight is, you know, a recommendation that I, you know, formally go to the city council in an open session item, maybe a consent item, but it's still in the open session, basically asking formally to, hey, can we let us donate this easement and let us do everything that we need to do to actually execute this easement, that type of thing.
Okay.
So I think that is it. Does anybody have any other questions or clarifications? Or is there any public comment?
Yeah, we need to go to public comment before we
Okay.
I actually have just a public comment. I read the report for this agenda item. It was kind of astonishing to me that my comment is that I believe it's been 10 years and it's supposed to be $200,000 a year, and that the city's not done anything. Has not kept their promise. Okay, that's a theme.
Promise of.
Well, that's not totally true.
Okay.
we're not arguing public comment, Tracy.
Okay, all right. Well,
Yeah, that's the way, no, it's just the way it looks, the way it looked in your item, but maybe it just was the way it was written, it looked that way.
Okay.
Sorry, it looked that way. I may be completely wrong, but it looked that way. It looked that way.
Yeah, and first of all, these acquisitions were done with Majuro money, right?
Yep.
No.
No,
No?
Prop
Prop
70.
70. It was before, it
There
was in
was
the
a
90s.
'90s.
Was a state thing, yes, it was.
So you got a chunk of money from the state.
It was
I'm
a
trying to
bond.
understand this, because I know we have Majuro, because I was on the committee with Pam Nyberg and
Yeah.
we kind of ran a campaign, you remember, back in the day. So I was just wondering how much of that was connected with this, because, you know, it's great to see things evolve, although this was, you know, a different source of money. But just a question, like, doesn't this land get, if you give it to, and this is just a question, okay, so I understand this. By donating it, do they get to use it for like land mitigation, horse trading for projects and stuff? Is that what they use it for? No? Okay.
No, so just to be clear, we would be donating a habitat easement, so we would still own it. So we would still own it. Right now, it doesn't have any conservation easement on it at all. It doesn't really need one because it has this Prop 70 deed restriction on it anyway, which functions as an easement, but it's just a deed restriction instead of a conservation easement. What we would be donating is a habitat conservation easement on this property. And it's not in exchange for development or anything like that. It's basically, the Conservancy has to, take certain steps every year to try to, put acreage into the reserve that they're building. Their whole, one of their big tasks is they have to build a big, nature preserve. That's the whole point of why the plan was done, so that we don't have this patchwork of preserved lands, and that they're all sort of, there's a plan about it, and they're all interconnected and function. You know, they have higher value as habitat because they're connected. So anyway, that's why they're really interested in some of these, all of these parcels along the South Fork to add to their, reserve. So it wouldn't, it's not in exchange for like a development project doing mitigation or anything like that. It's part of getting land into their reserve that they need.
And is each city supposed to do this? Because it sounds like, it's Secretary Davis has not done much, but what about Woodland?
Well, yeah, Yolo County, well, I mean, the member agencies, I don't know, this was our commitment. I don't know what some of the other cities or the county did.
So is this something Davis worked out with YC?
It was, yeah, it was part of the, and again, it wasn't, it's it's not a cash. We basically said, hey, we will, it's not a cash thing, like, oh, we'll give you 200,000 a year. It's more like we will work with you on projects that fit within the open space program and fit within the plan. And, you know, over the 50-year life of the plan, this is how it works out per year, but over the 50-year life, this is the value that we would be contributing. And that's why I want to donate it, because that would kind of, you know,
And it would
serve to help finance the implementation of the plan.
And it would be
basically.
protected by that Yolo conservation,
Well, yeah, and then these three would have a conservancy,
which is critical. Well, all you're doing right now is relevant to what we just talked about, is the protection of these things. Otherwise, it's irrelevant, right? So but thank you for all you're doing. This is great.
They also have funds to restore. They have a
Yeah.
mandate to restore certain ecosystems with the species that are on their list. And so this is a unique opportunity to get some upland riparian, just be fantastic. We don't have the funds to do that, but they do, and this is a perfect situation for that.
Conservation easements are not easy to get, as you know, so that's why the one on Wild Horse is very relevant. Equally relevant.
Okay, so commissioners, any comments you want to make? Any motions you want to put on the table?
Let's talk first.
Yeah.
These parcels regularly flood. Where you see that curved levee,
Yeah.
this area is completely underwater. It's at the bottom of Puda Creek. It's joining with the Yolo bypass. There's an enormity of water in that area. And it is such an opportunity, I think, for restoration and, like I was just saying, like a oak woodland savanna that grades into the riparian. Even if they could do a little bit of floodplain lowering, get us a little bit more riparian, get us down to the groundwater a little bit, they might have the funds for that. I'll definitely be talking to them about these plans. But I just see this as a fantastic opportunity for us to get something more out of these properties than we can do.
And my understanding is that there would be great opportunity for them too, because the city owns the land, and it's not like a habitat easement that would be on some private land, right? Where you could not say, let's do restoration, and then we'll say, oh, no, you know, it's just, right? So I think it's like, you know, it works both ways.
Yeah, so
It
that's
seems
a
to me
win-win in
very nicely.
many respects. And the public access component is really important. The fact that we've got, you know, just one parcel separating us from the South Fork could I mean, if we ever get that second parcel, this is huge. I mean, we're so close now, even to the Yolo bypass wildlife
Mhm.
area.
Mm-hmm.
If we start, getting, 'cause look how close we are to the sinks. The sinks are
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
maybe a parcel over. And, this area is just such a gem ecologically. We really gotta do what we can to get this fixed up.
Christopher, did you
Ramiro,
have something?
Christopher?
Christopher?
I mean, it's the same comment. I think I would make on a lot of these projects, but just like, if we're not financially constrained, I just never see a reason why to vote against it or not wanting to attain it, because it's only gonna do good for the property in the area. Like, we're in a situation where we kinda had to pick and choose based off like the budget, and then, okay, and we open up the discussion a little bit more. But, I mean, from our conversations today, I just don't see a reason to vote against not wanting to pursue obtain the consents for this property.
Yeah, I agree with all the comments, and I echo the same sentiment. I think it'd also be really great to contribute to, that promise we've made to YHC. I also want to stress the public access component to it. I think it'd be wonderful to, dream about having that be connected one day, and having this sort of condition in an easement, I think would be really good and promising for the future.
I agree with all that, and I'm looking for a motion.
Okay. Alright, I'm not good at that.
I'll put the motion.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Ramiro's got
Studies
it.
law here, huh?
Motion that the city proceed with the donative easement, to YHC, including in it a condition, that public access be available at some point in the future or now, or both.
Do we have a second on that?
Can I just edit it one word?
Friendly amendment?
Accepted.
Put the word habitat before the word easement.
Conservation habitat.
Habitat easement.
As Tracy was explaining, we're giving them a habitat easement
Yeah.
and not a, full blanket easement on.
Not an ag easement.
Yeah, not an ag easement, so, I wanna make that crystal clear.
Okay.
Do you accept that, Ramiro?
Yeah, I just want to say, it's within the item, action item, so the city would coordinate with YHC to ensure that the conservation easement associated site. I think maybe right now, people thought it was a conservation easement, but if you want it to be habitat clearly, then yes, we should probably.
I'm just picking up on what Tracy said, so maybe we could get some clarification on the
Yeah.
difference
It says
between those two
habitat
words.
conservation.
Yeah, habitat, well, that's,
Yeah.
so a habitat conservation easement is the same thing as a habitat easement.
Okay, great.
I think we're just using them interchangeably, but technically it will be a habitat conservation easement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we put all three of those words in there?
Yes. Yes,
Crystal clear.
yes.
Okay, did we have a second on that?
Second.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
Sounds good to me.
All in favor of passing the motion on the table, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great.
All right,
Okay.
sounds good.
Sorry.
On to, the, item B,
Yes.
standard process for the commission-initiated tasks and projects.
Okay. So this one, we've, I think, talked about once.
Yeah.
Right, is it sounding familiar to you? Right, I mean, that was, it was a while ago, but city clerk Zoe came and spoke with us.
I believe Bapu was in that.
Bapu came, I don't think Josh was
Yeah.
here that day, but it was Bapu
I
and
think Bapu
Zoe,
was there.
right, and they changed it, so, basically, so for example, before we've kind of just, every commission did something different in terms of how items got put on agendas. And some things are staff puts on, something that, sometimes the city council wants something on, and sometimes the commission decides they want something on, right? So this was an effort to sort of standardize that third piece, which standardized how commissions put things on the agenda that the commission comes up with, right? So not something that staff is putting on or not something that the city council has asked the commission to put on, okay? So this is an attempt to sort of, so this is like, all the commissions are doing this now. We're gonna, see how it goes. It hopefully isn't gonna be too cumbersome, but, you know, basically how it's gonna work is that, for example, if you know, the first thing would be like when we talk about the forward calendar at the end of the meeting, and say a commissioner who says, you know, hey, I think we should put blah, blah, blah on the agenda. So then what happens is then the next commission meeting, it would go on the agenda, but just as a discussion item to make sure that the full commission wants to actually formally agendize it. So it's not to discuss it, but to agree to formally agendize it, okay? So then the commission would discuss it at that meeting and decide whether, well, is it fully formed yet? You know, that would be the time to kind of, for the commission to decide, you know, is it good as is? Do we like it? Should we modify it? Do we need more information? Do we not want to do it at all? Whatever, right? That would be the.
Is that just a discussion item though? Because that sounds like a decision being made whether or not to put it on the agenda.
No, it would be, right, it would be an action item.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, but it would be, I guess what I'm saying is you're not like discussing the actual topic.
Yeah,
You're
right,
more
yeah, yes.
discussing the scope of it,
Right,
or what it
yeah.
is, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Okay,
Not very well. So that's how that would be, and then depending on what the commission decides then, let's just say they decide, yes, this is the scope and this is what we all agree on, this is what we want, then they will vote on that. And then the staff liaison, which would be me, then will write a staff report to the city council, which will go on consent. And the kind of template of it was included in your packet, and it basically is kind of going through a series of questions like, you know, is this in your scope? Is it, you know, is it something that already is sort of following some plan already, or is it something the city council is already doing, you know, things like that. Going through a series of kind of a little mini analysis about it, and then staff then will either recommend to the city council, yes, that the commission should do this, or staff will say, recommend, no, it'll take too much time, or it takes away from something else, or whatever. And then the city council, it will go on the next city council meeting on the consent agenda.
oh my,
And then they will decide whether that item will be discussed at the commission or not. So I think that's the gist of it. So it's more steps than in the past, but again, it's an attempt to sort of standardize it and, you know, make sure, I guess, you know, again, that the commission is doing work that's sort of aligned with the general, what our plans and policies and what the commission should be doing. And again, but it is sort of ultimately would be, I guess, the city council's decision when it comes on consent. They can pull it. They don't agree with staff, they can pull it. Pull that item off consent, talk about it, you know, decide something else. So, you know, to my knowledge, it hasn't happened yet, so we're gonna see how it happened. I don't know which meeting, one of the first staff reports under this new process will happen, but we'll kind of, you know, it might be a little bumpy for a little bit, but hopefully we'll all get the hang of it.
I thought this was all outlined in like, was it Robert's Rules of Order? Like this process?
Not this process, no. This is different. This is more very specific to the commission work and the city council's direction for Davis. It's very specific.
Okay.
So, There's a curious, when you look at what is an action-oriented commission-initiated task,
Yeah,
and then it says at the bottom of that little section there, this, gives examples of what are. This type of activity would require council approval to proceed. So what's the process of us getting that approval?
what were you looking at?
This here.
So that's page 2,
What is
Yeah.
not an action
In the
oriented
middle.
commission?
what is an action-oriented commission-initiated
Oh,
task?
right here.
And the very last sentence, this type of activity would require council approval to proceed. So my question is, what is the process?
Oh, yeah, because it's referring to this example.
Yeah.
So it's saying example. So let's just,
Say we got a presentation, oh, we're really interested, we wanna do that.
Yes.
What do we do?
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so let's say, for example, let's say they're here, right?
Case in point.
So
Yeah, exactly.
tonight, during your long range, somebody would say, if you guys wanted to talk about it, you'd say, hey, do we want to put this on as an item to discuss if we want to bring this back in our next meeting? So in your May meet, if you decide you wanted to, right, in your May meeting, you would have a short discussion around what that is, what that looks like, and then you would vote on whether or not you want that to come back to the commission.
Okay.
If the commission votes, the majority votes and says, yes, we do want to do this, you would then fill this piece out. This is what this is, right? This is like, you would fill out the sheet that says, hey, city council, we want to talk about the conservation easement that's currently on the Wild Horse Golf Course. We've had public comment on it. You'd fill out the information, why you want to talk about it, why.
Actually, I do that.
Or you do that, sorry.
Yeah.
Yep. And then it would come to the city council on consent calendar with a recommendation from the liaison saying, yes, I recommend that this item gets agendized and we have a discussion, we do a full staff report, we do it that way. And usually on consent, the council would just vote it through, or somebody would pull it and talk about it, or things like that.
Okay, so it could get pulled and tossed.
Yes.
So it would.
And to, most of it, I mean, to be honest with you, the vast majority of the tasks that come to commissions are usually in one of the first two pieces. It's, staff.
Not controversial.
Yeah, or just like, right, it's something that the city council looking into, right, like we just did it with, social services. Say, hey, we want social service to look into this, so that's a direction from council. A lot of times that happens, or it's like what you're doing here tonight with the easement. Right. It's something that Tracy needs to get over the finish line, it comes, it's something that staff does. The vast majority of the commission's work fall in those two.
Right.
Okay.
It's just kind of those outliers is what this covers.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, so it wouldn't be, right, so it wouldn't be things like, let's just say the two members of the commission want to form an ad hoc subcommittee and look into a particular topic or something like that. That's fine, because again, it's, you're spending time on it, it's not me, it's not staff. If you guys want to form a subcommittee and do research and come back and report, that's all fine. It's really trying to, put some parameters around what staff is spending time on, whether it's supposed to be, if we're supposed to be spending time on it, and again, if it's sort of over 2 hours, that's considered like, okay, well now we gotta think about that, right?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Now, my question is, it seems to me that it would put a lot of delay in getting approval to even start discussion on something. It seems like it would be at least 4 months.
Well, hopefully not.
First we
that
talk
long.
about it, the next time we vote that we want, then it goes to the next,
Well, it's a consent item, so hopefully, I agree that it will be more of a delay. However, staff, we're supposed to really, so let's just say at least a month, because you have 2 meetings, right?
Yes.
But then if I can get a consent item,
Okay.
then I have to prepare the staff report, but it's not supposed to be super long and laborious to do.
Yeah.
The staff report is supposed to, there's a template, it's supposed to be pretty quick to do, that I could just turn around and get it on the next city council agenda.
Okay, yeah, because that would be kind of a downside of this, to get into a lot of bureaucracy and, people come and they talk about something, we try to agendize it, and then it takes 6 months to,
Yeah, and to be honest with you, that's probably the number one piece that Mayor Beitler and I, were the subcommittee on commissions, that we heard from commissions around this, was the concern around the length of time that it would take to do it. As Tracy said, like if, for this example here this evening, depending on what you guys decide, right, you'd be looking at kind of the end of May probably, right? Because you don't meet until May.
Okay.
And then if you talked about it and said, yeah, we do want to do this, then Tracy would put it together and it'd be in that May meeting. So you kind of have that beginning of April to like the middle of May type of delay. And also, to be honest, like, I think this is, as Tracy said, I mean, if we get into it and we are seeing that this is taking too long, then we need to go back to the table and figure something out. We don't want it to be bureaucratic. We don't want this to be, something that is hampering commissions doing their work. So it is something where if staff is coming to us and saying, look, this process is just taking too long and it's taking on average, when something comes up, 2.5 months or something for us to get it, then we need to kind of go back and look at it, right? I mean, that's part of what we're starting to process through. And as Tracy said, this kicked off in December. It's been 3 full months. We haven't had a single one that's come forward yet. So, not because it's being delayed, just nothing has come forward like that. So.
Is it true that it's pretty much staff time that's the trigger?
Not necessarily, no, because there's a bunch of, that's part of it, is and this commission, I'll just say, this commission, at least the 10 years I've had it, I've never really felt, maybe it was one time, I felt like, okay, really, I'm spending too much time on this. But other than that, I really, there hasn't been a lot of things that, I felt like we're off course here, we're doing stuff, or I'm being forced to do something that I really feel like I shouldn't be doing. So some of it is just staff time, because again, these commissions do take staff time to prepare packets. It's mostly, a lot of it is, again, when it's an item that requires a staff report, because, you want them to be meaningful and thorough and factual, and those take time, especially if it's a topic that's not just sort of a regular topic that we're, I'm working on or whatever, and kind of have to start anew. Some of it is it within the commission's purview? Is this within the purview? Is this something that follows like what the commission is supposed to be working on? Is this part of, and also sort of following sort of general council direction in this area? You know what I mean? It's a number of different things.
Just listen.
Oh, sure.
Can I have a briefing agenda?
Oh, here's the whole, that's the whole.
May I have a copy for myself?
Do you have? Let's see.
That's not the agenda, but it's,
Okay, thank you. I'm just curious.
So yeah, I mean, it'll, like I said, I haven't, that template is from the city clerk's office for the staff report. I haven't kind of gone through one of those myself yet to kind of figure out like, okay, how would I write this sort of thing? Some of it is just how much staff time is gonna be involved in accommodating the commission's request.
so, case in point, we have an issue. I'm interested in it, I'd like to agendize that. This is coming from the commission. How do we go about this?
Right, so
Like, how would this work?
So when we get to the board calendar item on the agenda, when we talk about like, okay, what's coming up, and we have 2 meetings left until we take the summer recess in June, although we can have a special meeting over the summer, so we don't. We would talk about what we want, what we have coming up in May, and a commissioner can say, hey, I would like to put this on to discuss. Not as the topic, but whether to figure out what it is, what is this thing we're discussing? Are we just discussing the terms of the easement? Are we just discussing the development proposal? Are we discussing the Wild Horse Development Agreement? Like, what are we exactly discussing? Okay, so it would be to sort of the next, so let's just say that's the May agenda, would be figuring out what is gonna be the title on the June agenda that says, okay, we're going to discuss X, right? What is this animal that we wanna figure out, right? And so then, so we're gonna have a little bit of an issue, not just my commission, but all of them, right? Is just timing, because city council meets 2 times a month, we only meet 1.
Right.
So there's timing issues, so if I miss a meeting, then, boom, we've missed that meeting, we have to go to the next month, right? So there's gonna be some timing things.
Hmm.
You know, some matters are more, I'm not saying this isn't timely, but I'm just saying some are, you know,
Yeah.
urgent, like there's a
Right.
bona fide sort of deadline, others don't, at least as of yet, so that's consideration as well, so that's what we would do, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then my understanding would also for people that bring, you know, a subject to the commission, if they're anxious to see it discussed by the commission, they could go also directly to the city council to advocate for it to be put on the commission agenda, or does it work that way, or I'm just curious.
No, not usually, they would come here, they would ask you, they would ask this commission, it wouldn't probably go straight, and if they did, that wouldn't really be the right way to do it.
But you're asking us to get council approval, why couldn't they advocate?
Well,
If it were
they
pulled
can't.
off the consent.
Oh, no, they
agenda,
Off
They
agenda
can, right?
items and make the comment like how they did today at
Yeah.
that same meeting, just so they get the put on their radar.
Okay, yeah, that's,
That, I wanted that clarification.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is the city council is not gonna tell me, oh, put that on the agenda because someone came to the city council meeting, so I'm
Yeah,
saying,
yeah, no.
it comes from you guys who
Yeah.
control the
Yes.
agenda.
yeah. Because that's kind of a role, right?
Yeah.
Is to hear the citizen on particular subject and then elaborate, right?
And provide, you know, comment back to them.
Yeah.
That's reasonable.
Is the reason we have to wait for, that item to be placed into the next commission meeting? Like, why couldn't somebody just, or one of us commissioners just send you an email and say, hey, we'd like to discuss this so that it could be placed in the future, as opposed to waiting until that commission meeting and then talking about, putting that on the following commission meeting, then voting on it, as an action item in the following one?
Well, you
Is it the
could,
Brown Act limitations, or is it?
no, I mean, I suppose that so if I understood your
Yeah.
question correctly, let's just say you decide, you get home and tomorrow you send me an email and you say, I wanna talk about toads or something,
Yeah.
okay? I would talk with Patrick and say, I guess what we would do in that case is similar to where you bring something up in the forward calendar segment of the agenda, we would put it on the next agenda as a discussion for the whole commission. Does the whole commission wanna talk about toads? And what about toads?
Okay.
Like what exactly, you know what I mean? So-
Great, so it
Yeah, you
doesn't
could do-
require us to physically meet and
No.
talk about it to be placed on the following commission
No.
meetings?
No,
agenda.
at
Okay,
least,
great.
it doesn't say that in here, but I would
Yeah.
assume so, because it doesn't, you don't have to bring up an agenda item during the forward calendar discussion.
Gotcha, yeah, I misinterpreted during the commission's discussion for the commission will suggest that a particular topic be placed on the future agenda. So I thought maybe you couldn't do so unless you were in that meeting.
Well, that's what it does say that, and I think that's the normal process, but that doesn't mean that a commissioner can't just
Send it
email
forward to
me
you or something
if they
like
come
that.
up with an idea,
Just wanna
right?
make sure,
Yeah, exactly.
Do you mind I ask a question? Where is this
Well,
Lower Porter Creek located, the donated fund?
We're actually off of that, we're on 6B.
Yes.
Oh, okay, so I can, never mind, but can I find the page somewhere? Or
Yeah, it's on the website,
On the website.
you're talking about the easement?
Yeah,
Here's a map of it, but it's in the materials online for the meeting.
okay.
I think this is an extra.
No, it's the
No,
same thing.
that's this one.
This one, I think.
Okay, I have a copy.
Do I do too?
Okay,
If you want, you can give her the
Okay.
copy.
because I had one. All right,
Anyway,
but we already talked about that.
Thank you.
so this is just for us to kind of get clear, all of us,
Right.
including me,
Yeah.
getting clear on like what we're supposed to be doing.
Okay.
I'm not asking, we don't have to take an action or anything, and just, we'll sort of see how it goes, and
Mhm.
we might fumble around for a while, but, hopefully it won't be too much trouble, and we'll just, if it becomes too cumbersome for everybody, we'll have to reassess.
Yeah, and just we've started doing it on our long range at city council before. Somebody would just say, hey, I wanna put on there X, and they would put it on the long range, and then it sat there, and then it would come up or not, or what, right? And now we're doing a more like, you need to at least have a couple of people up there who say, yeah, I think that's an interesting thing that we should then put to our city manager and staff to prioritize to bring back, instead of it just being one person saying it. That was another piece, when you brought up, Steve, like what some of the other reasons are, what's happening in some other commissions in general, and I don't know about, my time here, it hadn't happened, was just, one commission would say, hey, I want to talk about this, and the commission, nobody else in the commission was interested in that or was outside the scope, and then the staff had to prepare a report, do all the work, and then we spent a huge amount of time in a meeting going over something that the commission didn't really ever want to, take on, so it's, part of that as well, so.
Yeah, that's true.
And like I said, our goal is to continue to hear feedback once we get some of these in, and if there's a way that if it is a timepiece, and like I said, that's what we heard from every single commission to a T, was worried about kind of things getting bogged down. So that is at the forefront, and making sure we pay attention to that and check in with our staff team to make sure that that's not happening, and if it is, figuring out what is it, what can we tweak, what can we remove, what can we do to make it so it's not that, so, yeah.
Can I ask just a clarifying question based on what Ramiro asked?
Yeah.
So he could email you tomorrow, right? Get something on the agenda, and then it goes up on the agenda, but for us then to go at the next meeting, we want to discuss it, but are we discussing it at that same meeting? But it gets pushed to the next one, right? Versus he brought the topic today, we could table that to discuss at the next meeting, and that saves more time, right?
No, it's the
But
same,
it's the
because,
same.
because you're, the next, when somebody has an idea that they wanna just
Yeah.
put on the agenda, then it will be put on the next agenda, but only
See, we
as a very nebulous thing, like what is this thing, does everybody wanna talk about it, if so, like
Right.
what
Yeah,
exactly?
okay.
So,
Right, and
Yeah.
then it gets refined, I
Right.
look at it as sort of a refinement, there's an idea, and then it gets refined by the whole commission decides, yes, we wanna talk about this thing, and then that is what gets put on the next agenda.
and get a consensus of the commission itself to say, yes, that's
Totally,
something
yeah.
we really want to, get deeper into.
Yes,
That's my understanding.
right, so,
Can we have public comment on this?
did you take public comment on this 6B?
No, we haven't
I
yet.
wanted to hear the discussion anyway, I wanted to hear.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, thank you, and this is, Josh, thank you so much for explaining it, but I'm hearing a 3-month delay. It's, that's what I'm hearing, if you brought it up now, it has to wait till May to even be superficially discussed. And then that gets delayed till the following meeting to have a deeper discussion, so that's 2 months. Then it goes to council, and you wait to hear from council, so that's like 3 months, no?
Yes.
She's saying yes.
Well, I
you're
mean,
saying
it could be depending on how, right, it could be.
I'm saying can you give me the scenario of this, because here's the problem, what we've just brought up is urgent, it's coming.
Yeah.
So tonight, Stacy, how can we make this happen so that, you said a little earlier it could be heard, so to speak, in May to go to council right away. So if they have a superficial discussion tonight, can
Well,
that
it
come
can't
back?
be on tonight, because it's
Okay,
on the
okay.
agenda.
All right, so I'm saying, how could it be here you said something that it would go in May, that it could go to council.
So here's I mean, again, I haven't done this before, so we'll see how it goes. So let's just say, in the May agenda, there's a discussion about something general about the Wild Horse easement.
Okay.
The commission then decides what exactly they want to discuss. Is it just the easement, just the terms? Is it something broader? Is it the habitat? Is it what is it, right? Yeah, so then I have to write a staff report, so that's the beginning of May. So let's just say ideally I can do it really quick and I get on a mid-May city council meeting. Then I could get it on the June.
Okay, so at the May meeting, this group could hopefully get this moving forward, because let me tell you how we can save you time, because she and I have done a crap load of research on this, and we have all the documents that would save you a lot of time. But we have to move forward, and that's why we're here tonight. And we beg you to please get the ball rolling tonight, so that,
I guess
so
I would
we get
also
to
say
council-
though, if it's a legal, again, I'm not a lawyer, so
Yeah,
again,
but just to
if
get it
anything
scheduled.
requires a city attorney, review of a term or something like that, I mean, again, I mean,
I'm just saying we can save you time with a lot of the information we can
I have
provide
the
you.
easement too.
No, beyond that, we have a lot more
Yeah.
information, but we would give you whatever you need to
Sure.
save you
Yeah, we put
time.
out a public records request, so all we have to do too is just give you the number and say, look up that number, like the
Yeah.
whole, application, everything, the title reports, everything that was in, it's, we've done, I've probably done 15 public record requests.
I know.
Yeah, so I just give you a number.
So
and then
we
you can-
have-
you can
it would
find
save-
the information.
Yeah, stop a lot of time, because we
Sure.
can help facilitate getting this, because then there's a break in council, right, in August, is it, Josh? July, well, see, we only have one more, we would have to have it approved,
In June.
how, in June, do you guys meet in July?
No,
Okay,
we
so
don't meet in
how
July,
could
and August,
that-
unless we had a special meeting.
Hello, just introduce myself. My name is Ningwan. I'm the granddaughter of last Chinese Empire. I'm the owner of Ningwan Soap Pub, and I recently found out that the communists back there, communists come to United States stealing land from my family, and I would like to have title information about the easement. Yeah, my name is
Okay,
Ningwan.
we're getting off our topic here,
I
so,
know, but
This is public comment, you have to wait your turn to do public
Oh, I
comment.
just asked for my time. I just want to let you know it's not okay to stealing from any
I need
family.
to finish.
What's your name?
My name's Eileen, but that's not important.
Oh, it's
So,
yeah, okay,
I'm
please,
trying to-
please, we need to finish this up.
Yeah, I'm just trying to finish my
She's
comment.
the land doesn't belong to them,
Okay.
Then
Okay,
that's
so,
stealing.
so, thank you, but,
Please.
so how would it happen that it could get, to the commission and discussed before break? Can that happen?
Well, I just said that if we have it in May, and I get it on a consent item on a May city council meeting, and it all goes smoothly, I could get it onto the agenda for June. I don't know what it is, if it's just, again, I'm not sure what it is. I know about the conservation easement, but again, there has to be some discussion about what it is, and then that could be on the agenda for June.
Happy to help you with whatever.
Yeah, I just want to
Okay,
make sure
okay,
it
but
is
we need
their
to,
own
we need to
land.
wrap up here.
You are not allowed to donate land or anything that not belongs to you. And my name is Ningwan. I'm the granddaughter of last Chinese Empire. I'm the owner of Ningwan Soap Pub.
Okay, thank you for stopping by.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so, commissioners, any, other comments, questions on this, or are we
On
gonna be
that
ready to move on to the next item?
Well, we'll see. Yeah, that's good.
You're good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Question, this has been adopted now, right? This is in place now.
That was just a discussion item, yeah, this just,
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
just discussion.
there's nothing for
I
us to
think
vote
what
on.
his question is this is the formal process that's been
Where we need.
established for us now?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So then we'll, try it and,
Yeah, well, we'll work with it.
Okay, let's move on to, what we should have done months ago. Go on to electing a new, chair and vice chair for this year.
okay, so first, some of us are not here, but
Well,
yeah,
it was on the agenda,
yeah.
that's how it goes.
Second, some of us are not gonna be there anymore, right? Is that you for
Possibly.
sure, but,
I
is
mean,
there
nothing's for
some-
sure, but likely, I'm not going to be here, yes.
Likely, okay, so,
I would prefer to have a larger, more than just minimum quorum sort of audience if we're gonna be voting on, the chair and vice chair, especially, since at least 1, 2, maybe, I don't know how many might not be here next year, but there's a big possibility that may happen, so I'd like to
Yeah.
see the rest of the other commissioners here.
I mean, I don't know, I mean, I'm just wondering of the opportunity, given that some of us here will not be there and some of the missing people could be there. So it seems like a little complicated, but,
Do we have a motion on the table to do something besides vote right now?
I would motion to table this when we have a larger, when there's more commissioners here.
Do we have a second on that?
Can I get clarification on the commissioners? I know that some of us are up for reappointment.
Yeah.
Is that public knowledge? Like, can you tell us who has said they want to continue?
Oh, well, actually, I don't
Okay.
know, because
Yeah.
that's the communication between the,
yeah,
I believe that Lindsay is not going to continue,
okay,
but I believe Ramiro is, and
Sarah.
Christopher and Sarah and you. So I think we will have everybody except Patrick and Lindsay, I think. That's my best guess
the
at this
idea.
moment.
Okay. Personally, I would feel more comfortable if, the people that are most likely to be there would be together.
Well, we do have a
Or-
motion on the table. So is
Yeah.
there a second on that or no support of that motion?
I would amend it to make just more specific to next meeting. If we only have 2 more left, we know
Yeah.
it has to be soon.
Yeah.
To accept that friendly amendment,
So,
Monroe?
depending on who's here or not, I think next meeting should probably be the best bet.
Yeah, we can, I'll accept that, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we'll have to, but next meeting, no more tabling.
Yeah.
So do we have a second then on that motion?
I'll
The
second
amended
that.
motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, any more discussion? Okay, all in favor of postponing till next meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay.
Good, so, the subcommittee and liaison updates. Lower Poudre Creek Coordinating Committee, let's see, I don't think that we had anything huge from our last meeting. I will report that we had, a disappointing salmon return this year, despite the fact that we had the new salmon ladder in place, and so we're trying to get to the bottom of what's going on with that. But there's a number of different kind of things that it could be. There's issues down at the far end of where Poudre Creek drains down into the bypass. There's other things going on in the bypass. There's questions about how to really optimize our releases, the attraction flows that the salmon find and come up the creek. So there's a lot of variables still. It's still unclear exactly what's going on. And so we're working on that. So that's one of the big things. And then there's also the state water board is in the Delta pushing for a lot more flow. It gets very complicated. I don't know all the details on it, but there's requirements, but they don't necessarily actually align with what's going to be best for the creek. Having a ton of water going down during the summer isn't necessarily what is what the creek needs. So we're working with them to come up with alternative strategies that involve habitat restoration and other things, as opposed to just dumping a bunch of water from Berryessa down through. So that's an ongoing discussion, and I'll have more to the commission as that kind of solidifies. So that's all I have on the updates. So moving on to long-range calendar.
What about the Conservancy? Did they have a meeting?
That, we haven't had one of those in 2 years or more. Well, no, this is a different, this is a committee for non-signatory projects that want to get involved with YHC and get credits using YHC property. And there's only been one of those that's come up. That was PG&E, and that was a while ago. So it's a standing committee that doesn't really ever meet.
Okay, but you're on it.
I'm on it.
Right.
He's on it.
So yeah, I will certainly let you know if that committee ever meets again. Long-range calendar, Tracy, what do we have? What are we looking at?
Well, the only things that I had, before tonight was, what I mentioned previously was potentially, selecting the general plan update subcommittee. There's two. There's one that I said is a subcommittee to look at the peripheral parcels and, where the biological resources are, like where the prime ag land is, that kind of thing. So there's one subcommittee that the city council has asked us to form for that. Then there's another one that would be 2 people from this commission that would be part of a larger committee, if I'm getting this right, of two people there are like six commissions that are primarily responsible for having a bigger role in the general plan update. So it would be two from each commission, and they would kind of, again, that committee is sort of designed to sort of help resolve conflicts between commissions, right? Of land use plans and things like that, and work with the planning commission on that. And I don't know a lot of details, but that's kind of my understanding. We'll get more on April 23rd. So I will hear from them. Maybe we will be asked to form those at the May commission meeting. Maybe we won't be asked to do it that quickly. I don't know. So those two possibilities. Another one is possibly doing the Nishikawa. I never have done preliminary acquisition report. Again, like I said, they kind of applied and I didn't even really know they applied. You know, the commission hasn't really seen that property, the acquisition working group hasn't seen it. I haven't done a preliminary acquisition report on it. I don't have to do all of that before July 3rd. They don't need a resolution of support from the city council, but so I don't have to do that, but I was just thinking I probably should since they're, you know, they've applied. And so those are the three that I had for tonight.
Okay.
And now we want to add the easement issue.
Yeah, I'm assuming that somebody wants to add that, right?
Yes.
So we'll add that as a discussion item.
Yes.
And then, yes,
What are we gonna call that? The wild horse? What?
it's a golf course conservation, it's an open space conservation easement on the Wild Horse Golf Course. So.
Parcel?
Yeah, it is, well, the golf course is,
Is it a bound parcel with a number?
yes. It
Okay.
has,
And that easement applies to the whole parcel?
yes.
Correct.
Mhm.
Alright, and I just wanted clarification on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like that on.
It's not, it's, like, as I said, it's an odd one offer, because it's not an ag easement, obviously, and it's not technically a habitat easement, it's an open space easement.
Okay, so, to our process.
Yes,
This is coming from the outside, it's coming from the
well, it's
commission, it's gonna require your time. Do
well,
we request now that it go on to the?
no, it's gonna go, well, you're requesting now to put it
Yeah.
on the May
Just so I
agenda.
get a full circle sense
It's
of how
going to
this
be on
works.
the May agenda as a discussion about what the whole commission would like
Mhm.
to look
Right.
into or do
Okay,
in regards to
yeah.
this
It's
topic.
the initial discussion
Yes,
of what
the
it
initial.
is, and
Right.
we'll hear from you, and
Yes,
you're gonna coordinate with them to come back in and give us a little bit more
We're happy to do that,
background.
to help you.
Sounds like they've done a bunch of research that would help.
To be determined.
To be determined.
Okay, there you go,
Yes.
very good.
And this commission may vote in that meeting not to do it.
Okay,
I mean, that's a reality.
Fair.
I mean, so everyone has a vote, right? So I'm saying the process, the
Right.
reason why that comes forward is that it could come back to the commission in May and say,
And then-
hey, here's what we're thinking we wanna do, and then you have a discussion on what that is, and you may agree that you don't wanna move forward, you may agree you wanna look at all of it, or you may agree there's pieces in there you wanna see, and that's what Tracy then puts together and says to the city council, the Open Space Habitat Commission voted, they want to take on this item, and here are the details of what they want to look into. And that's the discussion that you would have in your next meeting.
So
That
to-
you would then put together and send up.
so to address this delay issue, could there be a contingency in
What do you
the agenda item? That if we vote, yes, we're interested, we could get a presentation from them that day to accelerate this process? Cause it sounds
Well,
like it's
we
urgent.
could technically give well, no, it'll be on the agenda, so you
No.
know, topic thing.
That's what I mean by a contingency. If it's voted down, no. If it's voted yes, they
Wait,
give
that would
us a.
be-
Yeah, but
That would be-
the next meeting.
that wouldn't, I don't think I could do that just in terms of what I'm advertising as the
Yeah.
agenda title, because
Yeah.
we wouldn't really know what
So
it was.
contingencies can't be done then?
Not
Yeah.
really for Brown Act purposes, it has to be clear what's being
Okay.
discussed.
Very
Right.
good.
Yeah,
I'm learning.
That's okay.
Okay,
We all are.
all right, so,
Okay,
So,
okay.
I don't want, I know I maybe shouldn't be talking right now, but I don't wanna be sprung on us like a couple days before that we're supposed to give a presentation.
It sounds like, no, it's not.
not next time.
Okay.
Next time, we need to agree that we indeed want to discuss specific aspect of what you
And
talked
in the
about.
meantime, we can send a couple things too, but not overload you with information probably.
No.
Try to distill it
We'll
to
just,
Yeah,
she'll decide a couple of really.
its essence.
Don't
A
need
couple
to
really important things.
try to get to the,
She can go online and find all the stuff I looked at.
Well, yeah, well,
Just a couple-
I have a lot of it, because I mean, you know, all the PRA requests, I've had to look for
That
things.
saves time. All the time that saves.
okay,
Okay, so it sounds like we have an agenda for.
yes,
Yes,
Okay.
oh, and also
and,
the, I have to make a note, because I'll forget, the electing the chair and the.
Oh, right.
yes, that, we said that,
Oh,
yeah.
that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Yes,
I have to write that down, otherwise I forget.
all right,
I adjourn.
okay.
Thank you very much.
Officially.
More information on the actual, like language and concept of these and all that.
Got it all.
I can have it too right now.
Yeah. Sure, it'd be interesting to read through it.
Good night, everybody.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
All
Thanks,
right,
Tracy. Have a good night.
thanks. All right,
Okay.
you guys have a good night.
All right.
Right here? Okay.
Yeah, but the stuff
Thanks
is
for
not
hanging out.
anything particular, it's just,
Patrick.
Oh, it's just, okay.
it's just, you know, whatever I thought was important.
Thank you so much.